Hey, what's up, everybody? So, today I'm uploading a video. Uh, I find some of this stuff interesting. This is a video about people who believe in a flat earth, kind of expressing their opinions, and then other people who believe in a global earth. I believe it's scientists. I don't know exactly what everybody does, but they do get into that. I've partially viewed the video already, and I immediately was like, oh, this would be a great one to make a video about. I've been thinking about doing some videos and some video commentary for a while, and I haven't gotten around to it. And, I didn't have most of the tech stuff on hand to really do it the way I wanted to, but I'm using what I have and I'm giving it a shot. So, um, I'm just going to get right into it. This video is a little bit long, so I'm just going to get into it pretty quickly here. I might play around with the settings a little bit. So in this video, if you see something that's like really like, oh, I didn't like that noise, or something's really loud, put something in the comments for me that I can see. Or if the audio is just really, really poor, maybe I can do something about it. So yeah, let's get right into it. Flat Earth versus globe Earth. And I'm going to kind of do a little bit of my opinions on this too. Because I'm somebody who's believed in some weird things before, and I am not a flat earther. I definitely am on the globe Earth side. So I'm not trying to push any flat Earth stuff. I hope nobody out there gets really inspired to get into flat Earth from this video. So that's not what this is about. But yeah, let's refine our epistemology and see if what we believe is rational. All right. Do you think the shape of the Earth is?
I don't think. I know for a fact it's a globe.
The Earth is flat.
It's like we have this picture of reality that's a big puzzle piece, and then one of those pieces just wasn't fitting.
I'm always open to having a discussion with someone who is holding a wrong belief like this.
Are you willing to change your mind on this?
I'm not. The evidence is so much.
Nobody wants to be a flat earther, but if you showed me incontrovertible evidence, I would definitely.
See, I would change my mind if there was some kind of incontrovertible evidence. There's been so much evidence already prevented that the Earth is a globe. I would really struggle. But if there was a lot of evidence out there that the Earth was flat, and NASA was saying it was flat, and all these things, I would probably believe it was flat. So that's where I differ, but not a big thing.
Back. Who wants the ridicule?
Where do you hope you get from the discussion with the other side?
I'd like to tear them to pieces.
That's kind of interesting. So, what are you hoping to get out of this discussion? Just wants to tear them to pieces. Okay.
I'm Jim Underdown, Executive Director of the Center for Inquiry West in Los Angeles and the chair of the CFI Investigations Group.
I'm Spencer Marks, one of the senior members of the CFI Investigations Group, Science Advocate.
I am Marina Yeri. I'm a theoretical physicist, and I'm with the University of Irvine.
I'm Wendell Walton. I'm a Chief Learning Officer for a young startup.
I'm Shelley Lewis. I'm a graduate of West Point, critical thinker, and jumped out of airplanes.
My name is Dan Glatman.
Critical thinker and jumped out of airplanes. Okay.
Work as Dan the Waterman in the drinking water filtration industry, and I'm a truth seeker.
I get my flat earthers on the left and my globe earthers on the right.
See, I'm already kind of seeing where like
Only step forward.
this is gonna be a.
For you, I believe the earth was created by
Sorry,
a
I'll give it a
higher
second.
power.
Okay, so the question was, come forward if you believe the Earth was created by a
Well,
higher power.
I've been a Christian for 30 years, so the Bible is a flat earth book. You have to take it literally. Like, for example, in Isaiah, when it talks about how the earth is like a clay wax seal that's stamped with upturned edges, that's just not some fancy story.
So I don't think that we should interpret the Bible literally. all the time. The Bible can say some things, or if we interpret everything literally, people might do some crazy things, and they do. Some people, there are some verses in the Bible about testing your faith with snakes, and there are ministries that have dedicated their time to handling poisonous snakes, and multiple people have died. The Bible, the way I see it, is stories that can be interpreted, stories that might be hyperbole that could be interpreted to help people make better moral and ethical decisions. But if you were to interpret everything literally, like from the Old Testament, you might stone people to death, stone children, gay people, women were considered part of, were material objects to men back then. The it's kind of a scary thing to say that you're going to take everything literally from the Bible. And so that's kind of where where already I'm like, okay, this person has a worldview that the earth is flat, and they are making a big case for the Bible as one of their opening things. So I don't know, just kind of interesting. I see that kind of a flaw in this person's epistemology, in how they're coming to their decision, where they might think that that's evidence that the earth is flat. And I don't even see it as a claim that the earth is flat.
It's a simile. It is like.
Right, absolutely. And in Isaiah it talks about too, and I'm a Christian, he who sits upon the circle of the earth. There's a difference between a circle and a ball.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
If you look at the original Hebrew, it means disc. There's over 200 scriptures in the Bible that point to a flat earth.
So this notion that you need God or some higher power to create the earth or the universe is very old, and was initially posited by people of a pre-scientific age. Since then, we have learned quite a bit about the universe coming into existence, when that happened. Modern humans don't get their cosmology, they don't get their physics, they don't get their knowledge of the universe from the Bible or any ancient text.
It's sort of like the God of the gaps. Once, people used to believe that lightning was God's wrath and throwing these lightning bolts, but once we understood it was a natural process.
These are good points that the
God
scientists are
shrank a
making.
little bit more, because now we couldn't attribute those lightning bolts to God. We had to attribute that to the real science. The other thing, the point about the Bible specifically for me is, why is that one particular text the correct one? You choose to believe that, and that's fine, but there's so many other writings and so many other books, so why weren't they correct? Why is just the Bible correct?
Well, what you'll find in a lot of these ancient religions is they're all flat earth religions. All their
Does the number of claims give any more, does it make a claim more true, the fact that there are more of them? So basically she's saying like, hey, there are lots of religions, maybe all of the religions on earth say that there's a flat earth. I don't think that this would give any more justification to the claim. I don't consider that as evidence that there's just more and more claims somewhere.
cosmology goes back to being a flat earth with an enclosed system. So it's not just the Bible that teaches this. It's many different religious books.
So one problem I have is to trying to explain phenomena happen in nature by holy books. Those are religious books. Those are not books of science. And it is wrong to infer or deduct scientific readings out of those books.
Bye.
My name is Wendell. I am a logical, biblically based, and scientific flat earther. I didn't start out, and no one starts out as a flat earther, but I had a lot of questions. So I actually got to the point where I had to go out and put my own eyeballs on it. So we went out to an observation at Salton Sea.
Sorry about that.
and Things just didn't add up.
My
down
wife
there.
doesn't
So
know
we've
I'm
gone
making a
back,
video right now.
Probably a dozen times. And I can guarantee you that there is no curvature over distance.
The internet has played an important role in
the internet has played an important role in confirming my view of this topic. Now, who do you think is going to step forward? I mean, I'm pretty biased in this video. I know, like, I'm definitely not in the flat earth category, but I know all three of them are immediately going to jump.
That's the problem.
Well, we have the advantage of information today that's outside of channels 2, 4, and 7 and the few networks that are corporately owned. It's pretty easy to say YouTube isn't research, but when you spend enough time, you're picking up quite a bit. And with the discussion groups, panels, we've gone against opposition. We've opposed ourselves. Surprisingly enough, flat Earth is its own worst enemy. So it's not that easy for us to come to consensus. And we find that consensus is orchestrated and not actually scientific in any way.
You know, my grandfather used to tell me growing up, never believe anything you read in the newspaper, right? He told that to me. Now, with the age of the internet, it's like, you know, how much of this
Sorry, this is just all really
misinformation are you
cringy.
getting there? And when you have like eyewitnesses taking video of something, you do have to take everything with a grain of salt. That's why, because of my my multimedia background, I knew that all that stuff could be faked. You know, take it into Photoshop, take it into After Effects.
Now, I did hear the comment from this guy over here. Sorry, this guy right over here. But he said, yeah, the guy with the vest. He was saying that, hey, some of our own worst enemies are in the flat Earth community. We just can't agree on anything. And so basically, it's because I think a lot of the flat Earth community, I mean, I haven't brought it up now, but I think it's just made up of just tons of claims. And some people claim this, some people claim that, and some claims can be so ridiculous it might hurt their cause. And so I'm kind of guessing that's what he was kind of saying there.
Okay, this is at the core of the issue of why there are so many flat earth believers out there right now. The problem is the information from someone who decides to start a website or produce a YouTube video is not reliable. When I have a toothache, I go to a dentist.
That's right.
When my car
Not
breaks
reliable.
down, I go to a mechanic. When you have questions about cosmology, you should go to an astrophysicist, you should go to a physicist, you should go to people who have spent years and years studying these ideas, not some 6-minute YouTube video. There is a percentage of people that if they saw a YouTube video that was not within their scientific chops to refute on the face of it, would believe anything out there.
One of the things I will say is NASA.gov has their own documents out there that we get to vet, which is through the Freedom of Information Act. And would you agree that NASA documents, if they're on display, that we should be able to go and research inside there?
NASA is not proving that the Earth is
I'm sorry.
Well, they say it in 14
you
of the
should,
documents.
you should read what NASA says, and you should listen to what
I
NASA
would
says.
love to see your NASA evidence that the Earth is
It's
flat.
only their contradictory issues
Okay,
that
let's
bring
see.
us here.
We're all familiar with the Earthrise photo, right? The Earth is rising over the moon. We're all familiar with it. That's a NASA. You can go out to NASA's site. You can download the original, right?
I already know what you're going to ask.
So you bring up the luminance on it, and you can see where it's cut out and pasted there.
They're showing us doctored images that are clearly doctored. The blue marble is a very famous image from 1972. When you talk to the artist from NASA, his name is Robert Simmons, he talks about exactly how it was created from data, and it's not a photograph whatsoever. He added
what?
clouds.
Let me explain.
He added
Hold
a
on.
highlight of the
If
sun.
you take, you know, on your phone, most phones have that panoramic image. When you do that, you're taking a series of pictures, and the phone cleverly stitches
I'm
that
just
together.
saying how it's
Hold on.
presented. It's
Hold on.
presented as a real
So when
photograph.
NASA takes real photos and they either clean them up for color or they stitch them together so it's one large image, it doesn't mean they're CGI.
You're talking about composites.
So that moment there, that was actually a good little exchange. So the flat earther kind of makes a point where he's like, hey, some of the stuff we were presented like these were actual images of the Earth, but really these were composites and photos that were brought together to make a photo, but we were, misled, basically saying that there's room for like fabrication or whatever. And immediately one of the scientists comes in and he has a really good rebuttal where like, when you take a panorama with your phone, you're still capturing all of the essence of what you're capturing. Um, it's just kind of an interesting argument, but either way, I don't think that's not really evidence for an Earth. So even if what he's saying was true, like let's say that like NASA fabricated that image of the Earth, how do you get a flat Earth from somebody telling you like giving you an image that is false? You know what I mean? So basically, like they are starting a fire, and saying, okay, well, you're gonna have to deal with my claim, saying like, hey, here's something NASA did, and so you're gonna have to go out of your way to disprove this, when really they're still not pointing at any evidence. So just because you point at somewhere where NASA could plausibly or potentially made a lie, that still does not prove the claim that the Earth is flat. So they're just kind of moving things around, trying to make a case for something, but really still lacking that like really empirical evidence. And I'm kind of assuming it's just that's all that's going to be. I don't think there's really anything going to be presented empirically.
Call a globe denier. You could even get me into a virtual construct if I can't find the borders myself.
What shape would you say you think the Earth is?
It appears to me to be a stationary plane, as opposed to the vastness of infinity.
Okay, this
of
is this
space.
guy's view
I would
of the
find
Earth
it to be an ice
on the
plane
left here.
where we have a localized sun and our environment thrives there. You know,
Wow.
these particular people have misled us on television. This is a brilliant opportunity to speak. We've been suppressed, censored by mainstream media. Alternative media is just a thing of beauty for me.
I view the other side as uneducated.
I view the other side as uneducated. Now, I think that this moment is going to apply to a lot of things in society. Things like vaccines, things like politics, things like how we view law in cases. And I think this is going to be a funny moment.
I'm running.
He says he's running. He's literally running.
I'm running for this.
So they think the
Well,
scientists
they
are
certainly think
uneducated.
they're educated.
And they're following
so.
quite a bit of, the university system, what we call scientism,
Right, scientism.
obviously is the belief in what's written, where we tend to be exploring in the field with physical properties, not theories of any kind. We're using actual measurements that are calculated not by our guidelines, but the guidelines of science as we know it. I can only hope they're uneducated as opposed to disingenuous.
Well, that's the other thing too, because we know that it was on a large scale, the government has been disingenuous, and they're pushing a narrative, right? So it's hard for us. I mean, I'm sure that you've met people too. It's like, look, are you haven't looked into it yet, or are you a shill? Are you part of a disinformation
A
campaign?
shill.
I don't think you guys are uneducated. I think you're wrongly educated.
I think the problem with what I've seen in the flat earth crowd is that it's not that they're undereducated, but they, instead of looking at evidence and letting the evidence guide to where the ultimate conclusion is, they start with a conclusion and then they try to cherry pick evidence to support their pre-drawn conclusion. They cast away all the bits of evidence that actually is contrary.
Wow. I just want to, that is such a good thing to say. So he's saying, like, hey, I think you've started with the conclusion that the earth is flat. Okay. And if you start with that as your conclusion, you are just going to go find evidence wherever you can, right? And even if it's not really evidence and they're just claims. So basically he's saying, like, hey, you started with the conclusion that the earth is flat, and then you jump around to the Bible, other things, instead of going to direct sources that are providing empirical evidence for the actual curvature of the earth.
Their beliefs.
I think that you're very well educated as well as you are, Jim.
Certainly Ali is. He's probably got the best
he-
education of
yeah,
all of us.
Exactly, and he paid for it too. But more and more professionals are coming on board. They're starting to question their reality. So the thing of it is once you start to really take a hard look at the evidence, and you are unafraid of just standing for the truth, wherever that may lead you, then people end up becoming flat earthers.
What are you hoping to get from the discussion today?
I'm hoping to be able to tell our side of the story from the inside out. So many times, flat earthers are depicted from the outside in, and I want to be able to share with others empirical data that proves the earth is not what we've been told.
I have changed my mind at some point about this topic.
I have changed my mind at some point about this topic. Again, I think it's going to be all three of the flat earthers again.
So when I was 12 years old, I went to space camp, and I met Alan B. Shepard.
Oh, nice.
Yep, and I wanted to be an astronaut, and I wanted to be the first woman to walk the moon.
Oh.
So for me, I'm a glober. I went into this completely wanting it to be true. And my husband told me.
So that's interesting. I feel like she's kind of reaffirming what the scientist said before, that she went into this wanting the Earth to be flat. So there you go.
He saw this thing about the fake moon landing. And I was like, you're absolutely crazy. There's no way that the moon landings are fake. And then in 2010, my husband was killed. And so I never really developed that until around 2014 when Flat Earth kind of came back
Came
up.
out of nowhere.
And
I partially viewed this
sorry,
video. I
and
don't
that little
remember.
voice inside my
I didn't know that
head
was there.
said, remember the fake moon landing?
Hear more of Shelley's
Remember
story. Listen
when
to some podcast.
that was brought to my attention.
Called
And then I
Radical
started really
Empathy.
critically analyzing that. And I would say, just looking at that evidence, if they can lie about the moon landings, they can certainly lie about pictures and satellites and other things. And so I started going down that rabbit hole of studying. So that was my influence from
How
my
many
husband.
lies does it take to make a liar, right?
And being ridiculed for being
So this is also interesting. So she's basically saying like, hey, they faked the moon landing. Maybe they faked the round Earth. That's just sorry, I know it sounds ridiculous, but like, hey, people's minds go there. So she's saying like, hey, what can't they fake? And they, as far as I know, didn't fake the moon landing. I don't know much about that at all. I'm not really interested in looking into that either. But how does pointing to a fake moon landing prove the Earth is flat? So this is another thing. We're like, hey, I'm gonna start another fire over here, okay, that you're gonna have to put out to try to disprove me, something that's almost unfalsifiable. So, this is what they really need to be doing, is just like, here's the evidence for why I believe this. But instead, they're just putting forth more and more claims of other things that aren't honestly tied to why the Earth would be flat at all. And you would also have to prove why someone would want to hide a flat Earth from us. Okay. Then all these other governments, people with satellites. Now we have Elon Musk and people who can go into space actually and look at the planet. All of these people would have to be like in cahoots together to cover up, the curvature of the Earth. And I think that is way too unrealistic, and they are applying a unhealthy amount of skepticism to NASA, in my opinion.
is pretty tough on us. I wouldn't say that I've changed my mind because my mind isn't set. NASA is solely designed to change my mind. It is, from its inception, from its discovery, has been a television program, it's been a space program to sell us on something that they've yet to actually show us. Show me a globe spinning with clouds and a moon, show me home, and I think I could shut up quite
I think they have.
easily. I think I could shut up.
A lot. Haven't they?
The timing of your conversions is interesting to me. 20 years ago, the flat earth world was tiny and insignificant. Enter the advent of the internet, YouTube, online discussion groups, all these new available places where you could find information about everything.
This is true that the evidence as you looked were not robust evidence. And the sources you used, they were not reliable sources again. But my problem is that, and I like you guys that you are very skeptical, but at the same time, you are not skeptical about your belief system.
You
That
keep
should
going
have come
back.
first.
You think that that's my foundation for why I believe the earth is flat. And I'm telling you, you're wrong.
Okay.
I have evidence that proves it's flat.
What
or
type of
proves
evidence
it's not
you
a
have?
ball.
What
Curvature,
type of
I
evidence?
We're
just-
being misled. We're being deliberately misled by mainstream
Now,
media.
what's your evidence you're
We
thinking?
see too far. We see too far. We should not be able to see. I live in Dana Point.
Okay,
I can see San Clemente Island, which is 60 miles away.
so what?
What do you mean, so what?
No, I'm
It's
on the
1,100
beach. I'm
feet
on
tall.
the beach.
It is
What do you mean by
tall.
so what?
I'm on the
But-
beach.
Yeah, yeah.
Can you see a ship which is going?
We're
Oh
not
yeah,
talking
let's talk
that.
about the ship that goes
Yes,
over the curvature
okay.
of the earth. I love
So-
that. So science has said that when I see a ship go out of my field of view, it's going over the curvature of the earth, correct?
Yes.
But then I bring my P900 up, and guess what? I can zoom it back in.
Not
So
all
is
of
it
it, though.
going over the curvature of the
No,
earth
you
or
can't.
not?
Absolutely.
Oh, not all
No,
the
you
time?
can't.
Not all the
No,
time?
you don't see all the ship. The bottom part of the ship
Yes.
is hidden by the
At that
curvature.
distance, you shouldn't see the top
At
of it
all.
either.
If the Earth were truly flat,
Okay, so what just kind of happened in that little piece is that they're saying, hey, when I see something with my eyes and when it gets to the point where I can't see it, why, if I put on, like binoculars, can I still maintain view of it if it went over a curvature? And I think simply to the point where that curvature is, maybe her line of vision isn't good enough. I don't know. This seems like a story from personal testimony. And as far as science goes and how we live our lives, we shouldn't just take someone's personal testimony as either fact or as hard empirical evidence. So testimonies are the weakest form of evidence, and that's why it's really difficult in court to just get a case on testimony alone. In fact, I don't know if there are cases based on testimony alone. Usually things are thrown out with something like empirical evidence, like DNA or something like that.
there would be really hardly any limit. You would be able to stand at the top of the Empire State Building and look towards Chicago, a mere 1,000 miles away, and see the lights of Chicago at night.
No,
Why wouldn't
no, because
you?
you have an atmospheric disturbance.
Very thick.
I've been
water
into
alone.
astronomy since I was 10.
It's faulty logic. It's completely faulty logic. Okay.
One of the big things I do is investigate extraordinary claims like flat eartherism or ESP or all sorts of different things. The Earth is undoubtedly a globe and not flat. This is well supported by gobs of science.
Scientific consensus is possible.
Scientific consensus is possible.
What is the question?
I don't understand the question.
Scientific consensus is possible.
I think this is meaning
Possible.
science,
Anything
other
is
communities
possible. I mean,
all can
anything
come
is
together
possible.
with a consensus.
I've got a tremendous issue with consensus and peer review. I've been spending a lot of time arguing with people that argue the other side. And I found that surprisingly, consensus always wins. It was shocking to me that the group with the majority has an incredible advantage. As scientists, flat earthers, truthers, punks, we're at an incredible disadvantage.
Let's talk about scientific consensus for a second. You're never going to get 100% of anyone. There is scientific consensus on a global Earth. There's scientific consensus on evolution. A lot of big issues.
Use the word theory.
Do you know what a theory in science is? An extremely
And a fact
Let
is
me-
a fact.
Don't mistake this word theory.
You are,
In
not me.
science, it's not conjecture. It's not.
It's an explanation. Is it by
It's
definition, it's an
well
explanation?
supported
It's a
definition.
deep,
Well, let's talk
So this
about a
is
fact.
something
Show me a
people
fact
made a
then.
mistake.
Why
They
aren't
think
all
theory
facts
is-
theories?
In science, the word theory is the highest level that you can give something because it's so well supported.
What about a fact?
That is a fact. It's
Not a fact, you would call it a
You know
fact.
why? Do you know why? Because
This
in
is all
science,
kinda
there's
wild, by the way,
always
isn't it?
room
Just
for
this,
improvement.
like,
There's
little
always room
fact
to
that they
find
got these people
better,
together
to
like
tweak
this.
and find better information.
So that is how science works.
It gets better, refined over time, as opposed to flat Earth theory, which never gets refined. It simply is what it is.
New ideas have limited access to media and limited exposure. Until we're in university curriculums, we will continue to appear uneducated.
Well, that's not true. In the history of science, we had many occasions that the ideas, it was not welcomed by the society. Einstein was one of them.
Galileo.
Galileo was one of them. But if your theory is an authentic one, and it can go through this hardship of scientific method, eventually will win.
I used to believe that science was after the truth, right? We all just want to know what the truth is. Science has been trying so hard to divorce itself from the idea of a creator when God's intent was to create science to lead you to him. You know, sometimes things seem supernatural that we are able to explain later through, science. Okay, I understand. But there are other things as well that are supernatural, that go beyond the natural, that we can only explain through believing in a creator, right?
This is my big issue with science, scientific approach and non-scientific approach. You are absolutely right. In science, we are after the truth. And we are hoping by each day we're getting closer and closer to the truth. We never get there. Never.
Well, I know that's true for you. And
No, this is science. That's you guys. You think you do have the truth. Now let's look at the evidences.
So I like this. So he's saying like, hey, science isn't about everything being absolute truth. Okay. This is actually perfect. So he's saying the flat earthers are kind of believing like that they have maybe an absolute truth here. And what he's saying is science is, hey, I can change. Science can change based on the evidence. So I'll say the theory of evolution. When things are found in nature that might contradict something that was priorly suggested or they thought they had good evidence for, they can change it. And that's kind of why it's called like the theory of evolution. It's just kind of interesting to me that he was able to kind of make that distinction in that moment. So I do think that gets kind of to the core of it, where like science isn't absolutely saying anything. They're saying like, hey, this is all the evidence that we have, and this is our best explanation for this, and we think it's this. But it never really says 100%, hey, this is how it is. This is 100%. This is absolute truth. And that's always what I did like about science, And I kind of feel like maybe the flat earth that have religious beliefs tied into their like flat earthism, if you want to call it that, I think that's where they're getting that absolute truth stuff from, If he believes the Bible is absolute truth, and then the Bible says like something from Isaiah dictates that the earth is flat, and he has to interpret that literally because he believes the Bible is absolutely true, so he thinks the earth is absolutely flat 100%. I think that's where you kind of get into danger with your epistemology when you start having to give in to all these other absolutes, and why I don't think certain things from religion should be taken absolutely literally, But here, I'll just continue with the video.
As you were
That's a good
mentioning,
point.
you do have the conclusion. Let's find the evidences. Science doesn't work that way.
That's not
Well,
true.
that's not what
That
we-
is not
Well,
true.
you are
matter of fact,
saying
No.
you are referring to Jesus, who many billions of people do not believe, including myself.
And many more billions do.
So what?
So who's right?
Of course, I can.
So
When you say that we start with a conclusion and then try to match everything to make it work, like that
Yes.
to me is complete dishonesty. That is not true at all.
That is what you are doing
No,
right
you're
now.
not. You're making that assumption,
No,
which
it's
I
not
think
my
science does a
assumption.
lot of. So
Well,
do you
actually,
make
I'm
assumptions or
a
not?
scientist.
Does science
I
make
don't know.
assumptions? Does science
No,
make
let me-
assumptions?
Yeah, we
Of
do,
course.
sure.
Okay.
We
But
do
it is
make
necessary.
assumptions
But-
based on things that are well
To have the
supported
conversation.
and
Bias.
proven and reproven.
Bias.
We don't have
Show
to.
me how you isolate gravity. If gravity
We
is
don't
an
have to-
assumption, show me in the scientific method how you isolate gravity.
All right. I like this. I like where she's going. She's saying, hey, you can't prove gravity, right? So, like, I don't know how we get to gravity, but saying basically, like, hey, there's a theory of gravity, and you can't see gravity. So, how do you have empirical evidence for gravity? But the thing about gravity is it is testable and demonstratable, repeatable, and whenever I use it, it never fails. And so this is kind of one of those situations where I think she's trying to equate like maybe God to like gravity, like, hey, it's not crazy to believe in something you can't see. Like you guys believe in gravity. They're not really the same because one is testable, demonstratable, and repeatable. The other is not. So continued.
Let's cool off
Yeah, sure.
and reset.
Let's see where this goes. Sorry, all my stops are probably making this video really long.
You're like a round hard candy.
Conclusions require knowledge.
I just want to check in. How are you guys?
My water bottle.
How's this discussion going?
I kind of feel like I want to develop some of this stuff a little bit more. It feels high level, but I feel like there's so much that I haven't really even touched base on.
Well, I mean, I certainly didn't think that anybody on either side was going to flip.
Well, there's still time.
There's still time. I have hope for you, Wendell, and Shelley. I don't know about Dan.
You guys think there's hope that any of these scientists are going to become flat earthers? Or any of these flat earthers are going to become globe earthers?
Oh, yeah.
Put your waters to the side.
I don't think so. I don't think that's going to happen.
Hey, one more side.
Oh my God, what just happened?
Welcome.
The greatest moment in television history right there.
All right. NASA is trustworthy.
Okay, so the question is, NASA is trustworthy. I guess it's not a question. They all believe NASA is trustworthy.
So, I mean, obviously, any organization can be wrong with certain things, and they may have individuals that lie or deceive or something, but as a general organization, they're looking for the truth.
Yeah, the idea that NASA and the government is lying to us about the shape of the Earth is the height of conspiracy theories. In order for this to be true, the literally hundreds of thousands of people who at some point over the last 50 or 60 years would had to be somewhat complicit in this, and nobody spills the beans at all, is on the face of it completely unbelievable.
The private does not know what the general is doing. There's compartmentalization happening all the time.
Of course.
So it wouldn't be that far-fetched. Has the government ever lied to us is really the question at stake.
We all agree on that.
Yeah, but now we, common ground. Now we have NASA.gov, right? And absolutely, they're not lying about anything. They're completely transparent. Everything is true. We'd be foolish to
There's
think
a
that's
difference
true.
here. I'm sorry, this is a fallacy here. There's
Not a
difference.
fallacy.
I'm sure it is.
Go
See,
ahead.
you were talking about a government. Now you're talking about an agency of the government.
NASA.gov.
But this agency is scrutinized by thousands and thousands of scientists around the globe. You are dealing with smart people, believe me. You are dealing with smart people.
I don't deny that.
So it is very hard to do that. Once or twice, maybe, not for the all time.
Raise your hand if you think we went to the moon.
What is the proof? Hundreds and hundreds of pounds of moon rock.
All right, so he said, raise your hand if you think we went to the moon. All the scientists raised their hand. All the flat earthers did not raise their hands. So this also is kind of a tell that they kind of believe in some other things, just that maybe we've never been to space, or the moon landing was faked, and it's just kind of pointing to that they just don't trust science, maybe at all.
And dust. And we have distributed those freely to PhD scientists around the world. And not one of those geologists
Point
have
to
said,
the
what is this?
That's
lunar
proven to be
samples.
fake.
And also
Yes.
and collected on the ice in Antarctica and
Yeah,
in the Arctic as
absolutely.
well.
There's-
Those are collected. You don't have to go to the moon to get moon rocks.
To me, it just
As a
seems like the
matter of
flat
fact,
earthers just
all
start making
U.S.
lots of
Air Force
claims,
photography prior to
denying evidence when the
1958
evidence
shows
is
a flat
presented.
Earth. Only NASA shows
That's
a
not
sphere.
true.
That's
That is absolutely not
true,
true.
Jim. I wouldn't lie to you.
And the other bit of-
NASA's lying to you, my
the
friend.
other bit of proof
Not myself.
is we have a laser retroreflector on the moon.
Yeah.
That we're using now.
We still use to this day.
It's sitting there.
You can find to the inch how far away the moon
No
is.
pictures of home.
That only is there. By the
No,
way,
there are not.
My question to you is, why? Why would all these honest, hardworking people perpetuate this massive fraud? Why would they do
I don't want to
this?
hear this. I don't know
What's the benefit of that?
Okay, the benefit of it, they make $52 million a day. Follow the money.
No, the little
Follow
guy.
the money.
The little guy.
That's what, then when you say all, okay,
But it didn't start out that way.
$1 million
And NASA was not founded to prove the Earth was a globe. That had nothing to do with the way they were
well, if you
founded.
go and study
Are
the
you
whole-
sure?
Yeah, positive.
Really?
Yes.
Somebody's making $52 million a day.
Somebody has to be a voice for reason, and somebody has to be a voice for truth. It would be a fantasy to believe that I would change anybody's mind from the other three. However, if there's somebody sitting on the fence, and this is the first introduction to this debate, perhaps they'll hear the reasonable voice and say, "Yeah, that makes more sense than having this pizza-shaped Earth."
I can put myself in the mindset of the other side.
I can put myself in the mindset of the other side. Now, to me, it looks like they're walking forward, everybody. No, I don't actually think everyone's going to step forward. I don't actually know if I could put myself in the full mindset of a flat earther. I've had some weird beliefs in the past, and yeah, I just don't know. I think the one guy kind of nailed it earlier when he was talking about how he thinks that they're starting with their conclusions.
I used to be a ball earther. Everything you say right
Ball
now is completely what I used to agree to. So I completely understand where you're coming from.
For me, I think the correct way to do any kind of investigation or to examine things is by literally putting yourself in that mindset of the other person. So I do that. I disagree with your position, but I completely understand from your perspective what you're saying.
The trouble I have understanding your perspective is, in the modern world, unless you live in a cave somewhere, you have to believe in science implicitly. I met a flat earther, a young woman who said, I don't trust anything that science does. And that's a problem because human beings can't replicate the whole body of science every single generation. At some point, you have to trust what's already been discovered and proven and move on to the next thing. Otherwise, we're not going to advance at all. I mean, when you turn that key ignition in your car, you expect the car to start out
And not blow up.
and not blow up because science puts you in that position. So it's really hard to understand how people would know in their hearts that science achieves wonderful things and then just jumping ship when it comes to this other issue.
We're not drawing conclusions. We understand the mechanisms that made that car work. There is no theories and no disputed conclusions involved there. It's not a good analogy. Can I admit a great compromise that we have to experience being against the grain people? Is we have to literally sit in a group and decide whether or not we can afford to have an opinion, and that's tough.
I I agree with you there because we're the same thing. I mean, I think skeptics go through this and atheists go through this. I don't believe in God. When I'm around religious people, I take a chance socially when I tell them I'm an atheist. So I know it takes some courage to follow your beliefs, and I appreciate that. But I think I've done a lot of research in that venue too. And it's not something I choose to believe in, it's something I have to believe in based on the evidence.
See, what I get from you guys is that seeing is
Interesting.
believing. So how come you believe in God or Jesus? You haven't seen neither of them, right?
I've seen evidence, though.
Well, exactly. So we are looking for evidence. There are many, many other evidences for Earth not being flat. My point is that these experiments clearly show that the Earth is globe. And you don't need to go outside
It's
the
a
globe to see it's
conclusion.
globe.
It's a
You told me you
theoretical-
want the evidence. If you're
That's
saying
not-
that you look only to see something, then I dispute your belief system in God and Jesus or Jehovah or Buddha or Zarathustra or anyone.
You keep going back to religion as being
Because
our
it's coming
conclusion.
from there.
No,
You think you do
no,
have
no.
the
I
truth.
have
You do.
evidence.
She just-
I have evidence.
You
for
quoted
what
at the
I know.
beginning
She
of
pointed out
this.
physics.
You
I
quoted
agree.
Bible.
Of
That's
course
the
I did, but
reason.
that
really
is
think this
not
guy's
the
really
only
nailing it
reason
on
I know what the shape of the Earth is.
why they believe what they
That's
believe.
fallacy.
It's not fallacy.
It is a
Actually, it
fallacy.
is not fallacy.
It is a fallacy.
You,
This is definitely a
I'm a
difficult topic,
theoretical
though.
physicist.
for them.
What I'm doing is the combination of string theory and cosmology. So we try to understand what happened during the Big Bang, after the Big Bang, or even before the Big Bang.
What are you hoping to get from the discussion today?
Well, I hope I would be able, particularly to the young generation, to convince them that first, they should think critically and don't believe anything. They shouldn't take anything for granted. Look at the evidences and examine those evidences and throw away those claims that are not evidence-based.
Science, not to put it down, but when you're talking about rocket science, this is very difficult for the majority of people to understand, and it's designed that way. And so, in a lot of ways, hiding behind rocket
Kind of.
science is
Let's
similar
see.
to religion.
How much more is there?
If you look at the Catholic Church back in the
minutes?
days, only we can interpret the Bible, you have to listen to what we say. So in a lot of ways, we're getting that same notion from science that says, only we can interpret what these numbers are, you just need to trust us. But then when we actually do go and test some of their equations and they don't work, does that beg the question for us to go and test it ourselves? Absolutely.
I would say, one great thing about
I
science
think she's
is
just
its
making
predictability.
really random claims.
Let's for a short moment, assume that your model, this flat Earth model, is correct. I don't know, what does it buy for us? What does it predict
So that-
for us?
that's supposed to be the flat Earth
my
on the table?
question for you guys
That's our Earth.
would be, next time, bring me something from your theory, your model, that you can predict something which the globe Earth model cannot predict. Then I would change my mind.
I would just say that don't believe anything that I've said. You got to do your own research. And I think what you'll find is that you'll see that a puzzle piece doesn't fit. And the only way you're going to do that is if you put your own eyeballs on it.
I don't blame people.
What? If a puzzle piece doesn't fit, guys, you have to put your eyeball on it. Anybody getting this? Like what?
For being skeptical. I'm skeptical about a lot of different things. I applaud that instinct in you. But you have to go beyond just not believing in something. Ask the hard questions. Ask what qualifies a YouTuber, a book author, anywhere else you're getting this information. What qualifies them to make wide-ranging comments about the shape of the Earth? Look, anybody who can overturn Einstein or some major theory is going to be eventually written in the halls of science for the rest of their lives. But they have to come up with the goods. They have to show good science-based evidence that what they say is true, and they have to withstand the test of time and peer review and the rigors of the scientific method.
All right. Thank you. I'm all sweaty.
All right,
Ollie,
that
it was
wasn't
nice to
too
meet
bad.
you.
It really wasn't too bad. Hugs all around. Hugs all around. I think that though that I'll just say it one more time. The one guy, the one scientist nailed it. I think his name was Ali, when he said that they were starting with their conclusions, and a lot of these, a lot of people who get into like misinformation, usually just they hear a claim like the moon landing was faked, and maybe they see something that's really convincing, or someone makes a really good case, but somehow they're able to extrapolate from that to make other things not real, to somehow get to a flat Earth, without ever being shown any evidence that a flat Earth is even possible or could exist. I'm not really sure. I really think that the Ali guy nailed it. It seems like there is a weird thing mixed with faith in some of these things. I don't really know, but I think that it's good to know what's going on. And because there has been a huge resurgence of people believing in flat Earth, I don't necessarily, I shouldn't say this, I don't think it's a good thing really at all, but it's definitely been brought back to life by the internet. We're at the age where our epistemology really does matter. How do we know what we know? Where are we getting our information from? Our sources? Where are we applying our skepticism, and how much do we apply? These are all good questions to ask ourselves. And so that's where I'm going to stop the video today. Thank you for anybody that tuned in. I know this was kind of a long video. I do plan on making quite a few videos in the future about maybe some more flat Earth stuff. I'm not quite sure, but this was my first YouTube video. Thank you guys so much. Everybody have a great day.